So, who's actually going to get the most out of a 27-inch OLED gaming monitor? Who should just keep scrolling? And does the price make sense for someone who isn't a pro-level competitor? Those are the three questions that keep popping up whenever a new high-refresh OLED shows up on the market. If you're still on the fence, you're not alone. The decision feels a lot like picking a new car. You want the excitement of cutting-edge tech, but you also want to avoid ending up with a gadget that looks great on paper and then becomes a daily headache. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's set the scene. Imagine a typical gaming setup, a desk about a foot wide, a mid-range PC with a decent RTX 3060, a decent pair of headphones, and a 27-inch display that's supposed to be your window into every pixel. You've probably tried a few 1080p panels already, maybe even a 4K TV on the shelf. The allure of a 27-inch OLED at QHD resolution is that you get a crisp image with perfect black levels without the massive GPU demand of native 4K. That's where the GIGABYTE MO27Q28G is trying to make its case. The OLED panel delivers true blacks, which is why you'll see deep shadows in games like Cyberpunk 2077 or Horizon Forbidden West, and the 280Hz refresh rate promises buttery smooth motion even when you're pulling off rapid aim contractions in a first-person shooter. Now, who should actually consider this monitor? If you're a competitive gamer who runs at 144Hz or higher, enjoys ultra-fast response times, and you have a graphics card that can reliably push 1440p at 200+ FPS, the 0.03 milliseconds response time and 280Hz panel are not just marketing fluff, they translate into that extra frame of reaction time that can make the difference between a win and a loss. The monitor also supports both AMD FreeSync Premium Pro and NVIDIA G-Sync, which means you're covered whichever GPU brand you prefer. For content creators who spend a lot of time in color-critical work, the 10-bit panel with 99.5% DCI-P3 coverage and 84% BT 2020 means the colors look vibrant and accurate enough for most video editing pipelines, especially when you're working in SDR and HDR. On the flip side, if you're a casual gamer who mostly plays at 60 Hz, or you use your PC for office work and occasional Netflix binge-watching, the MO27Q28G may be overkill. The biggest practical downside here is the price relative to the performance you'll actually use. You'll be paying premium for a feature set like a 280Hz refresh and OLED panel that you'll never fully exploit. Additionally, OLED panels, while spectacular for black levels, can suffer from burn-in if you keep static UI elements on the screen for extended periods. GIGABYTE does include a built-in pixel shift and screensaver to mitigate that, but it's still something to keep in mind if you plan on leaving menus, HUDs, or video conferences up for hours on end. Let's talk about the day-to-day experience. The monitor's borderless design feels less intimidating on a small desk. You get a truly immersive feel because there's practically no bezel to distract you. The ergonomics are solid. You can tilt, swivel, and adjust the height, which is a blessing after a marathon gaming session. The KVM control is a hidden gem. You can switch between your PC and a PlayStation 5 without having to reach for a mouse or change cables. In practice, this means you could be gaming on your console, then hop over to a work spreadsheet without unplugging anything, simply by toggling a button on the monitor. That convenience, while not a headline spec, saves minutes every day and adds to the overall value. One practical strength is the HDR capability. GIGABYTE's display supports VESA Display HDR True Black 500, so the peak brightness can hit 500 nits. In real terms, that gives a noticeable pop in bright highlights while still preserving the deep shadows. In a game like Doom Eternal, the contrast makes explosions feel more visceral, and in HDR movies, the dark scenes have that cinema-like depth you don't get on a typical LCD. However, you'll notice that the monitor isn't as bright as a high-end TV that can push 1000 nits or more, so in a bright room you might need to dim the ambient light to get the best picture. Another practical consideration is the connectivity. The unit comes with HDMI 2.1 and DisplayPort 1.4. HDMI 2.1 makes it future-proof for the next generation of consoles, supporting 4K at 120 Hz, even though the panel is only 1440p. If you ever decide to upgrade to a 4K source, you'll be limited by the native resolution of the panel, but you still won't run into bandwidth issues. The inclusion of both ports also means you can daisy-chain two PCs or have a laptop hooked up while keeping your desktop as the primary source. Now, what about hidden trade-offs? The OLED technology, while gorgeous, can be a bit more fragile than an IPS panel. If you ever accidentally bump the screen, the cost of repair can be higher than a